This is the second of 5 short videos reviewing basic geometry. In this video, our focus will be on finding perimeter. So the simplest way to understand perimeter is to know it as the distance around a shape. If this makes sense, no formula is needed, with one exception which will be mentioned shortly. But let's go ahead and try a few examples where we just work through the definition of perimeter intuitively as walking around a shape. And my guess is that you'll notice a pattern that will lead to a formula, so feel free to use that if you see it. Our first example asks us to find the perimeter of the rectangle shown below. It looks like our length is given as 5 inches and our width is given as 3 inches. As we dive into this problem, let's make sure we agree on one thing, which is if the length here is 5 inches for this rectangle, that implies the length down here is likewise 5 inches. And similarly, if our width here is 3 inches, it would also be 3 inches on the left side. So, if I'm finding perimeter, I really just need to add up these 4 values, right? Again, it means walk around my shape. So I'm going to be using P for perimeter in this video. So perimeter here will be, I'll just start right here, 3 inches plus 5 inches plus 3 inches plus 5 inches. So we're adding all 4 sides, and in this case you add all 4 sides. 3 plus 5 is 8, plus 3 is 11, plus 5 more is 16. So in this case, the perimeter of the rectangle is 16 inches. This again refers to walking around the outside of the shape. So perimeter would be useful in, for example, finding the baseboard needed for a room. Let's try a few more shapes though. So our next example asks us to find the perimeter of the trapezoid shown below. In this diagram, all 4 sides of our trapezoid are labeled. So if we just start it again, I'll just start the bottom left and walk around. I'm going to be adding 5 inches with 3 inches, with 5 more inches, and finally 7 inches. So we got all 4 sides there. And then again, we're just adding, so 5 plus 3 is 8, plus 5 more is 13, plus 7 is 20. So our perimeter in this case is 20 inches. And that was for our trapezoid. So hopefully this is making some sense. You notice our units in perimeter are linear. Now our third example asks us to find the perimeter of a triangle. So now we are working with a shape that has 3 sides, but again we're just walking around the outside. So it looks like I'm going to be adding 8 meters with 8 meters again, and then I have 7 meters, so I'm adding these 3 sides. So 8 plus 8 plus 7 gives us 23 meters as the perimeter of this triangle. So perimeter is really just walking around the outside of a shape. Now the one exception I mentioned briefly earlier, which may not be intuitive, is when talking about the perimeter of a circle. So when we talk about the perimeter of a circle, we use the word circumference. And there are 2 ways of finding circumference depending upon whether you know the radius of the circle or the diameter. So I'm just going to draw 2 pictures real quick to clarify what those 2 values are. Pardon my not so perfect circles here. Ooh, yeah. So diameter would be a measurement, if this is the center of my circle, diameter would be a measurement from one end of the circle to the other, passing through the center. So that's the diameter. And now the radius, if again this is the center of my circle, would just be the measure from the center to the outside. So from my diagram here, hopefully it's somewhat apparent that the relationship between the diameter and the radius is if you take the radius and you double it, you will get back the diameter. So that's why when we talk about finding the circumference of a circle, we can either write it as circumference is equal to pi times diameter, or circumference is equal to 2 pi times the radius. So pi is this nice irrational number. It's really the ratio of a circle's circumference and its diameter. And it's this crazy number that never repeats and never ends. So in this video, I'm going to be using a decimal approximation for pi. Pi goes 3.14159 on and on and on. But in this video, we'll be using the approximation for pi, a common approximation, which is 3.14. So we'll try an example of finding circumference now also. So, find the circumference of a circle with a radius of 3 feet. Based on the wording, and based on the fact that we have two possible formulas, I'm going to go ahead and use the second one I have written here, because I'm told about the radius. So we know the radius is 3 feet. So when we start finding our circumference, my formula, just to write it down, is 2 times pi times r. In place of pi, I will go ahead and use that decimal approximation of 3.14. And for the radius, I can plug in 3 feet. So we're just multiplying 2 times 3.14 times 3, and that should be about 18.84 feet. And that would be the circumference of a circle with a radius of 3 feet. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Our next video will talk about area, so I hope you check that out.